A few triplets in there. Any of you were drummers. Hope you appreciated that. I always think of the Prodigy's, is it Breathe? That song where it's got the drum on the intro. Okay. Some of you will be following me on Blue Sky, or will have found me talking about, politics, life, love, the universe, Elon Musk, Trump, Keir Starmer, and you will be listening to this intro and you'll be thinking, what is this? Why is he talking about triplets on drum? Anyway, let's get into it, shall we? Welcome, guys. Welcome to another episode of A. Thompson and Other Disappointments. Your twice weekly delve, dalliance into the worlds of politics, despair, and everything utterly depressing and shit and awful. I'm your host, of course, A. Thompson, and for the next hour, you can consider me very much your compere of this god-awful timeline, this future in which we find ourselves. You can find me playfully dancing around the doom like the Willy Wonka of dystopia. In fact, that is what this is. This show is like if this was a newsroom, which you may have noticed it is very much not, but if it were, then these episodes, this podcast is it's dispatches from dystopia, isn't it? I'm feeling the alliteration tonight. Dispatches from dystopia. That's what this is. Anyway, before we get started, doff of the cap to the Patreons, to the channel backers for their continuing support of the channel, of the podcast. You guys give my funny bone a funny boner. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, on catch up, as it were, then come over to YouTube. Jump onto YouTube. Join the channel, guys. You get episodes of the podcast 2 days before everyone else. You get access to the Discord. You can get involved on the chat on Friday nights. There you go. That's the sell. I've done my pitch now. Right, what should we talk about this evening? Has anything happened in the last few days? Can anybody think of any big news stories? It's been a bit quiet, hasn't it, of late? I suppose, in desperation for other stories, given how quiet it is, I suppose we could touch on the Trump inauguration that's just taken place. I suppose we could try to make sense of the senselessness that has been exhibited over that way. Should we talk about Elon Musk's Nazi salute tonight? I'll call it a Nazi salute. I don't care if nobody else will. I saw a tweet today. I don't go back onto Twitter or X all that much these days. I use it sometimes for grok, for like AI imagery and stuff, for podcast thumbnails, but generally I don't go on there too much. And I jumped onto it today just to have a little look, see what people were saying about the inauguration. It is where news happens, after all. And I found this tweet, which I don't have to hand at the moment, by Jake Wallace Simons. If you don't know, I think he like executive editor or political editor of the Jewish Chronicle, I think. And bearing in mind the visage, the image that we all saw take place last night, or, as we woke up this morning, the image of one Elon Musk, who has, by this point you will know, because lots of people have been talking about this today, but an image of Elon Musk who's gone on record to support the AfD party, who are a far-right party in Germany. Elon Musk, whose father endlessly supported apartheid in South Africa. That same Elon Musk. Elon Musk, who continues to not just defend, but support Donald Trump, who told, various white nationalist, white supremacy organizations to stand back and stand by all of that. That Elon Musk was up on a stage at the inauguration doing what appeared to be a Nazi salute. And it appears that it's only me, the Independent, and a few other people who are actually calling it a Nazi salute. Everyone else is calling it a Roman salute. I don't know if you've seen coverage to that effect. A lot of people are just saying it's a hand gesture. And I really think this is sort of the problem that we're dealing with here in spades, is that nobody is willing to actually go on record and call a spade a spade. Like, this is what has happened. Elon Musk, a guy with, let's just say it, a guy with leanings towards white supremacy, a guy who is, at best, let's say, not averse to the idea of rounding up immigrants. He wants to bring in immigrants for his own companies, but he's not averse to the idea of rounding other ones up and putting them in detention camps, because if he was, he wouldn't be teaming up with Donald Trump in the campaign, would he? So we have to assume he's at least all right with it. He's okay with that. He can take it. If it gets him, if it's a means to an end, if it gets him to Mars, then he's okay with rounding up a few immigrants and putting them in detention camps. We won't call them concentration camps, though. I mean, we can't call what is quite clearly a Nazi salute a Nazi salute. So I don't know what, like, answers on a postcard. What will we call the concentration camps when they definitely construct the concentration camps? They're just going to call them something else, aren't they? They're going to go, oh, it's not really a Nazi concentration camp. It's not really, no, because that's not what they're calling it. That's not what they're calling it on the BBC news site. That's not what they're calling it. On Sky News, Fox News, MSNBC, and all over X. It's not what they're calling it. It's not a concentration camp, mate. I know. I thought it looked like one too. I did. But then I was corrected. Apparently, it's not a concentration camp at all. Yeah, do I feel silly? Apparently, these are ethno-centered, Tesla-sponsored resettlement camps. They're labour camps, but they're fun. They're resettlement camps, guys. We all like a bit of nostalgia, don't we? We all like who doesn't like a bit of that old World War II nostalgia? We certainly do over here in Blighty. No reason why we should hog all of the World War II nostalgia. Let Elon Musk and his camps have... Anyway, I'm going way off topic here. So, I saw a tweet by Jake Wallace-Simons earlier today, and the reason it struck me was because we live in a world at the moment where this incredibly powerful individual by the name of Elon Musk is up there on a stage at the inauguration for the supposed leader of the free world, Donald Trump. And both of these individuals have a rich tapestry back catalogue to them in terms of their defence of, or support of, or passion for hugely problematic people or causes, right? Fairly sure I'm okay to say that. A lot of this stuff is well documented. Now, it is the morning after one of these two has effectively, like at best, he's done a hugely clumsy hand gesture that frankly he should know better, given what people think of him and Trump. He's done this hugely problematic hand gesture. And at worst, he's actively gone up there and done a Nazi salute to the world to say, yep, we won, here we are, and this is where it starts. Cry harder, libs, right? Now, given that that is the context, that is what has just taken place, you would think that Jake Wallace-Simons would have something to say about that, wouldn't you? But at the time that I checked, he hadn't said shit. He was literally still banging on about Corbyn, wasting his time and energy and effort and breath and typing on posting stuff about Jeremy Corbyn, who, you may have read the other day. I think, was he arrested at a pro-Palestine march? I think. Sorry, I haven't done as much prep for this episode as I probably should have done. You may be able to tell. But isn't that incredible? Isn't that amazing? That somebody who is, understandably, owing to his heritage, owing to his profession, owing to who he speaks for with his job, with his publication, somebody so invested in the protection of Jewish people in the UK that this individual has nothing to say about Elon Musk even mistakenly doing a Nazi gesture on the podium of the inauguration of the next US president. It's incredible, isn't it? It's incredible. It's stuff like that make me think, where are these principles? Where are they actually anchored? What is he actually campaigning or lobbying for when he makes a big deal out of certain things? Do you know what I mean? It's probably starting to sound a bit conspiratorial and maybe a little bit anti-Semitic. It's not anti-Semitic. I'm not suggesting they're all in on it to get all these bloody Jews. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just speculating that if your prime objective in life was to shield people like yourself from offence and from feeling attacked, then I don't know, it's just, it's a little bit weird that when somebody's on stage acting like a fucking Nazi, that you would ignore that to then go running to criticise Jeremy Corbyn again. Like, it's not just me, is it? It's a bit weird. Bit of a head scratcher, that one. So that was a fun one. That was a fun tweet to take a look at. The other one I thought was really interesting was Caitlyn Jenner. Now, Caitlyn Jenner is a trans lady who you've almost certainly heard of. But she's a trans lady who has adopted Republican and, conservative sensibilities. She's been on a journey, as they say, in the business. So used to be, LA sports, reasonably liberal, as are many people in California. Anyway, with age, as is frequently the case, especially with very rich people, she has grown to become more conservative. And in that growth, in that maturity, she has found herself cheering on Donald Trump on more occasions than one. Okay? So Caitlyn Jenner, trans lady, and yet inexplicably pro-Trump. And Caitlyn Jenner goes onto Twitter yesterday and she says, congratulations, Mr. President. Thanks be to God. Okay. So she's really happy. Congratulations, Mr. President. Thanks be to God. But Donald Trump has just announced that it is official US government policy to completely abandon pronouns. Reuters are reporting that he's sharply curtailing transgender rights. Now, these are policies that come in knocking at your door, Caitlyn. And anyway, obviously somebody immediately claps back to her and says, he just ordered the government to call you Bruce, which is Caitlyn Jenner's, old name. Like, basically Trump is legislating for the policy of the US government and thereby proxy, the policy of America to be that we should all dead name trans people. So here's Caitlyn Jenner celebrating the win of this guy who is immediately going to make it harder for her. And I loved Marina Perkis's quote tweet of it. She was just like, leopard's face. Because that's what it is. Like, nobody believes that it's ever going to come knocking on their door do they? This is another part of the problem. Like, half of it is just nope. Like, everyone's too scared to say what is the thing, like the Nazi salute. Oh, we can't call him Nazi because then we'll sound hyperbolic. We can't call them fascists because then we sound like we're hysterical. But what if they are actually Nazi fascists, guys? Are we just going to keep tiptoeing around it? Like, Keir Starmer fucking wound me up this morning. Like, it's the biggest video on the internet, maybe for months, maybe a year. Actually, with the exception of the Trump assassination attempt and like the, fist up, all of that stuff. But it's definitely one of the biggest videos of the last 12 months. This thing with Elon Musk doing the Nazi salute. And obviously the lobby journalists are asking the UK Prime Minister what he makes of it. What do you think about Musk's Nazi salute? Do you accept that it was a Nazi salute, Mr. Starmer? Or are you also subscribing to this fucking bullshit that it's a Roman salute? Which, by the way, I researched on GPT. I'm not saying GPT is perfect. But most of the time, I'd say it's about 80-20 accurate with this sort of stuff. I researched it on GPT, and ChatGPT told me that there is actually no such thing as a Roman salute. It never existed. It was just invented. It was like romanticized by people who talked about what the Romans may have been about. So the whole thing is fucking made up. The only thing that is actually real, that did take place, is there were Nazis, and they did used to do Heil Hitler. I can't talk tonight. I haven't done my vocal warm-ups, guys. So Nazi salutes, real. Roman salutes, not so much. So could we just toss that excuse straight in the bin, please? Mr. Starmer, do you accept that it's a Nazi salute? And his response to it was, I haven't seen that, I'm afraid, yet. But I'll take a look at it later. It's like, you fucking coward. Obviously you've seen it. Obviously you would have seen this video. Then they were like, what is the Prime Minister's opinion of Donald Trump signing an executive order to immediately withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement? I understand that you are very climate conscious and, you want to make inroads with net zero, but you're also keen to build a relationship with the US. So what do you think of the US withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement for the second time in a second Trump presidency? What do you make of it, Keir Starmer? He's like, we don't have a view on that. It's like, oh my God, can you just try to grow some fucking balls? Like, this is the thing. Like, I was ranting about this on Blue Sky earlier. I was like, this is the thing that winds me up the most about the Labour Party, is they're in power, but they act like it's a favour. That they were given power, they were loaned power, It's like the contrast between Trump entering the White House and signing off all these executive orders. Day one, withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. Day one, we're removing trans rights protections. Day one, we're doing this, that, and the other. All of these horrendous policies just carpet bombed on day fucking one. It's day 201. Or something of the Keir Starmer leadership of the Labour Party in the United Kingdom. And still now, they're like, forget America's policies. Forget the stuff that Trump is doing that we're asking Keir Starmer to react to. Even Labour's own policies that they've committed to. Stuff like, overhauling the electoral process, making it safer. Press regulation. Things that their own party voted for, like proportional representation. Leveson too. Even their own fucking policies on day 201, sorry. They're like, nah, I don't know. I don't want to upset anyone. Don't want to make a fuss. So yeah. Good times all round. How are you guys feeling about it? You feeling psyched? Are you feeling excited about what the second Trump presidency is going to yield for us? I was thinking earlier about how this is definitely going to turn out now, right? But when you have right-wingers, chancers like Trump, and also like, Tommy Robinson or Nigel Farage or whoever the right-wing grifter may be, right? The problem with them is not just that they're dishonest. It's not just that they hurt people with the policies that they continue to shop to an uneducated, politically disinterested public. It is that those policies actually have to get harder and harder and more cruel the longer they go on, the more they're in power. Because if you are a Nigel Farage, right, and let's say he gets power at the next general election, be it in a coalition with the Tories or, you know, by some unfortunate miracle from their perspective, they are able to command an actual, you know, healthy majority of their own. But let's say he does get power. He's going to come to number 10 with a shopping list of policies that will enrich his friends, probably appease Putin as well. But also he will need to include some distraction clauses in there. So for Donald Trump, that is rounding up the immigrants and stuffing them into these detention camps, erecting the wall to keep the Mexicans out. But that won't solve the problems that America has, and rounding up the immigrants in the UK won't solve the problems that Britain has. We're still heavily in debt as a country. We still don't have any money for anything. People's pensions are slowly going to get eaten into. People's child benefit is going to get capped or reduced. Universal credit is going to continue to get eaten away at. And taxes are going to continue to have to go up and up and up, right? So, as people get more and more broke and more desperate, they will get hungrier and angrier, and people like Trump and Farage will get more desperate as well. Like, in turn, they will become desperate to cling on to power. So they're going to have to keep finding newer and more desperate scapegoats. So it starts off with, I mean, I suppose this is where the old adage comes from, right? It's like at first they came for the X and I didn't say anything. And then they came for the Y and then I didn't say anything. And finally there was no one left to say anything about me, right? It's that whole thing. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think it starts off with like, oh, well, you know, we'll round up the Mexicans, the illegal immigrants, and then that isn't enough to appease the desperation and anger of the general population. And so then they'll have to go even more desperate. Oh, well, now we're looking at second generation immigrants who never should have been here, but their babies were legitimately born. Well, now we're saying they aren't legitimate either. So now we're going to round them up and put them. What are you going to do with them? Well, originally we were just going to deport them, but now we're finding that takes so long with the legislative processes and legal aid and the rest of it. So now we're going to strip away legal aid. Oh, right. Okay. And also, you know, we can't have them out here roaming the streets, because then they'll come into your house, they'll steal your food. That's the reason that you haven't got any food. It's because of this guy or that woman or this family down the road. So we're going to round them all up. We're going to put them into detention camps. And then that doesn't solve anything. And then 6 months later, a year later, you're still desperate. You're more desperate. You're more hungry and angrier than you were last year. And now they have to think up something else. And gradually, this temperature is just raised, and the cruelty is raised until finally, you know, unfortunately, shamefully, where we end up is, you know, and I'm not scared to say it, like hysterical though it may sound, a final area that you will end up in politically is in that of Adolf Hitler's Germany. Like, they will be pushed to the wall and they will have to appease the anger of the general population, to whom they can provide no actual solutions. Because what are the problems? It's the national debt, it's a scarcity of resources. It is a general population who are finding it harder and harder to feed their families and keep a roof over their heads. And when you run out of excuses, like, oh, it's the EU, or oh, it's these net zero provisions, or oh, it's this, that, and the other. Once you finally run out of stuff and you don't want to let go of power because you know that you will probably end up in jail as soon as you exit power, what are you going to do? So I honestly feel like that is where this could go. And yes, it sounds hysterical, but it doesn't mean it's not true. Shall we move on? God, that's got dark, hasn't it? Let's move on. Okay, here is a story that I found on CNN Business, to be specific. This story could not be more on brand if it tried. Here's the headline. Champagne sales sink because people don't want to celebrate. Yeah, people are not in the mood for celebrating. Celebration is on pause. It's on furlough. People are not. They're not in that frame of mind. You know, Trump is back in the White House. There's probably a bird flu pandemic on the way. There's Nazis doing hand gestures behind podiums. RFK is probably going to bring polio back. It's not a good time. It's not the best time to pop the champagne corks. I don't know. I mean, there's two ways that you can look at this, right? You could look at it. It's like sort of pro-populist and anti-populist. You could look at it like it's pro-populist. Like, people are rebelling against elites and elitism, and champagne is a core part of that. You know, what do these elites drink when they're out at Ascot for the day? When they're in their eyes wide shut parties, what are they knocking back? A bottle of Bolly, please. Get me two magnums of Bolly. So people are rebelling. You know, it's part of the populism thing to rebel against the elites. But it could also be the victims of populism as well. You know, as we get hungrier and angrier and more desperate, you know, we do cut back on the extravagances. You know, I haven't seen a chart that overlaps societal and financial decline with champagne sales. But I imagine, you know, as things get harder and harder and harder, and as people start to subscribe more to populism, as the graph for populism climbs, there should be like a cross-sect, like a graph for the champagne sales, like right overlapping. I imagine those two meet probably about here. You know? I mean, I don't know the exact reason why champagne sales have sunk, but it can't be like completely unaffected by the younger generation's aversion to alcohol. Now, can it? I mean, when I was like 25, you know, in the beer years, right? When I was in like peak going out phase, I wasn't really buying bottles of champagne or anything, but I accept, or I would expect, that there would be, you know, a few thousand influencer wannabes, you know, want to flash the cash, go to these bars and like, you know, hey, check me out with my bottle of Moet. So it can't be unaffected by that. In fact, here's a little, you know, side note about how much, like how bad that's all gotten. Now, like I went out in Bracknell last weekend because, I mean, I've told you guys about my kids, right? I have two young children and they're getting a little bit older now, so they're a bit easier to handle. One of them's 8, one of them's 4. But we haven't had the easiest ride with regards to childcare. You know, a lot of young couples, when they have kids, the grandparents help out a lot. You know, I don't want to go on a big bitching and moaning session here because, you know, we've had help in other ways, I'm sure. But, you know, a lot of people, when they have kids, the grandparents fight with each other over who gets to have the grandchildren that weekend or the following weekend. You know? Not maliciously, they don't go call each other a prick and a cunt or whatever, but like they, you know, there's a healthy competition between respective parents, in-laws, you know, like, oh, can we have him this weekend? Oh, well, we'll have him next weekend then. Yeah, and then we'll take you to Chessington, won't we? They won't take you to Chessington. We're the best grandparents. You know, it's like there's a healthy element of, you know, competing grandparentness there. They love having the grandchildren, or they love giving their own children a break. I've heard that some grandparents love to do that. But anyway, you know, don't want to go off on a... In fact, you know what? I will go off on a rant. You know, like, my dad remarried, right? My dad remarried about 22 years ago or something. And so he's with his third wife now. And they drive down to see her daughter, and she has kids, and that's great. They go down there and they see her and they help her when they can. And I totally understand the need to do that. I remember being near to them, though. We caught up with them for a pub lunch, and I explained how knackered we are, how we'd never get a break, how it would just be nice just once to be able to just like we only had one kid then. We only had one child. And I was like, maybe we just leave him with you, like just for a night, so that me and the missus can go to a hotel just down the road. We'll be just down the road. All we want is a break for just one night of some sordid, dirty, filthy catching up. We just want to catch up with each other and reconnect. How about it? Will you have him for just one night versus the backdrop of you helping out your other kids all the time? And they were like, well, we just think that he would, we just think he would miss you. Yeah. So, you know, we've thought about it, but go fuck yourself is basically what they said. So there's that. And then, you know, there's my parents, as in that's my dad, and then my mum, you know, she and my stepdad have helped out in other ways, absolutely, but also they don't really want to have our children over there at all, so that's nice. You know, it's fine if we drive down there for the day. It's fine if we drive down for the day and have a lunch and talk and chat, but they won't have them overnight. So, yeah. What was I talking about again? Oh, yeah, right. So, now that they are 8 and 4 years old, they are finally at an age where I can actually have a break. Guys, I can leave them with my girlfriend and I don't feel like I'm being hugely selfish. You know, here, you take the kids and I'm going to go out and get smashed. So, now I'm like, do you mind if I go to a grunge band gig? My missus is like, all right, yeah, if you want to. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you know, I feel like they're okay. Like, I don't, you know, they're not much bother. I can claw back a little bit of like me time. I could go and see a band. I could meet some new people around our area, right? I promise I'll get back onto the champagne thing in a minute. But it's all connected, right? Because I'm thinking like, if I don't go out, if I don't force myself to go out and see local bands or go to local gigs, I'm never going to meet anybody in our area. And then in the absence of not having friends in our area, which until now I've been prohibited really from developing any close friendships around this area because I'm always, you know, parenting. I'm always dadding. But now I can get out. And if you don't get out, if you don't force yourself to get out and meet new people, as a man, particularly in your 40s, then you just don't develop new friendships. And we all know how dark existence can be for men in their 40s. And then you just end up, you know, yearning or pining for an era that's long gone, you know, like, oh, I miss my 20s or I miss my 30s or I wish I could catch up with people that I used to live near or with in London and I can never get back there because it's too hard to get away. Like, I can escape from the house for like a few minutes or a few hours to see a band, but I couldn't go up to London and, you know, live my old life, go off the grid for three whole days. Anyway, I'm really going off on a tangent now. So I go to this gig and dragging this conversation back, kicking and screaming to the champagne thing. Go to this gig and I was struck by how fucking dead everywhere was. You know? Like, the bars were empty. This is in Bracknell, by the way. Did I mention that? Can't remember if I said that. This is in Bracknell. So you could make a credible case that just nobody wants to go out in Bracknell. I mean, it could be that. I mean, this whole thing is about celebration. Nobody wants to celebrate anymore. I don't know if anyone has ever celebrated in Bracknell. Celebrated leaving, maybe. Celebrated driving out off that ring road, onto the slip road, and out onto the M3. Escaped. Crack open the champers. But yeah, like empty bars, empty pubs, or shut down pubs. Even the gig that I went to, I joked with my missus on the way out. I was like, I've just got this horrible feeling that it's going to be like I have to force myself to go, or I'm never going to meet new people. And this is something that I used to do. So I will go, but I've just got this horrible feeling that it's going to be like a band playing in a big room, and then at the back of the room, it's going to be like 12 lonely dads, all in their 40s and 50s, like foot tapping to the grunge bands. And I went there, and that was exactly what it was like. It was like every bar, every pub on the way up, and including the venue that I was in, everywhere was dead. And I was like, is this how bad the cost of living crisis is? And on top of that, it's like the Gen Z, Gen A thing. They don't drink. Like, is this just how bad things are now? Is like nobody wants to celebrate. The people that do don't have the money to. The pubs and the nightclubs and the venues have all closed or are all closing. And the only people who are still there fighting for this nightlife are the exhausted fucking fathers who are forcing themselves to get out and just tap their foots at the back of the grunge bar. And I stayed until about, what time? About 9:30. I left, which if you go to any of these things often, you will know that that's pretty early time to bail out. I don't think the headline act had even come on yet. But I just wasn't feeling it. I just wasn't really in the mood. I wasn't, which is strange for me, because I was like, I should be enjoying this, but I'm just not really. I mean, it was still, it still wasn't the worst performance I've seen in the last, 72 hours? Was it like, nobody did a Nazi salute there, so, 5 stars. But yeah, I couldn't really put my finger on it. Like, why wasn't I enjoying myself in what is ostensibly my natural habitat, I grew up on grunge music. I love dirty dive, grungy bars. I've talked about this before. Like, any kind of music that is a bit gritty and gravelly and not quite produced properly or slick. Like, I like that underground stuff. I'm in my natural habitat going to see these bands in this venue. But I just couldn't get into it. And I was thinking, like, is it that I'm sober? Is it that I'm cold? Like, it was fucking freezing in that venue. Is it that, it's half empty? Is it that I'm in Bracknell? Is it that I'm in Bracknell so I don't feel like celebrating, There were so many variables and factors to it. Is it that I'm a bit older now and this feels like it's like a hark back to a younger time? Is there a layer of midlife crisis to this? And so I'm like, I don't feel, it makes me feel a bit shameful or something. Because it's a tricky thing to navigate, I think. Like, so I'm 44, right, at the moment, and I don't feel particularly old. Some days I do. Like, some days I catch my reflection in the fridge of the co-op, and I'm literally like, it's like reflect. I'm like, I'm probably not doing it justice now, but and I look so haggard and gormless that I find it fucking hilarious. Like, I'll take a picture of my own reflection. Look, like, I'll pull the same face as I was pulling naturally a second before. It's like resting bitch face, but like resting gormless fucking idiot face. And I'll take a picture and send it to my girlfriend and be like, look how fucking atrocious I look. I'm just going to go and kill myself. I don't feel old though most of the time. Mentally, Or even like when I'm editing stuff like this, I'm like, I probably do look about 40 or 44. But I don't feel too old to be in a grunge bar or like knocking back a few beers. Not that I've been drinking, obviously for a while now. But, I don't feel disconnected from night culture, from having a laugh, from going to see a band and, jump up and down to a Nirvana covers band. Like that's fine. I'm still able to do that without feeling the prerequisite shame. But I am forever caught in this sort of this rock and a hard place sort of situation where it's like I feel fine going to something like that, or I would do. If I end up on a bill at Glastonbury this year, which, fingers crossed, lads. If I go to Glastonbury this year, I'll just get in on it. I'll just, throw caution to the wind, go and have some fun, let my hair down, get reco, whatever the kids say nowadays. So I'm fine in that respect, but at the same time, I do basically what it comes down to is this: I want to go drinking somewhere or like have a laugh or jump up and down to bands, but I do not want it to be somewhere where I feel like somebody's father about to pick them up. Even though I do want to be in amongst a culture that feels lively, that feels like there's still some energy and prospect and potential to it. Like I want to be watching a 20-year-old singer-songwriter singing about how she just had her fucking heart broken. I want to see the up-and-coming, unvarnished art and artists of tomorrow. I want to be... But I don't want to be stood at the back mistaken for a fucking taxi driver. Like, I remember when I was in Brick Lane. I used to live in Brick Lane, and I went to a few warehouse parties when I was like 30. I lived in a house share when I was 30, which is probably too old for a house share. Because the other housemates were all like, 20, 22. And so they were just like living their best lives, getting wrecked on a fucking Monday night. And I would just wake up, like I had a job in a bank by that point. I was like waking up, oh God, kept me up till like 4 a.m, doing coke on a coffee table, screaming at each other. Like at what point does a scream become a laugh or a laugh become a scream? I don't know. I do not know. But wherever that juncture is, they found that every fucking night at like 3 or 4 a.m. They go into the kitchen, slam the fucking kitchen drawers. I'll get all pissy with them the next morning, leaving passive-aggressive notes. Can you try to keep it down? Trying to find that delicate sweet spot between wanting to make your point. You want to be angry enough to make your point, but not so angry that they would never fuck you. So that's a sweet spot you got to find. I remember having a emo conversation with one of them. I was just like, I'm not even that much older than you. I'm like, I must have been about 29, maybe 30 tops. I was like, I'm not even that much older than you, but you're making me feel so much fucking older than you. Can you try to keep it down? But whilst I was there, I went out to like warehouse parties with them on the weekend, and it was a lot of fun. But I remember then, like I was aged 30, and I remember randoms or like friends of friends passing me and going like, how old are you? And then I was like 30 years old. And at that point they were like, how old are you? I think somebody's taxi's turned up. Are you somebody's father? Are you here to pick up Amy? Amy, your dad's here. How old are you? They said. And at the time I was, 30, and it hollowed me out. I just felt so detached from the rest of the group, living their best lives. These young, beautiful Brick Lane Aussie backpackers. And, so now I'm 44. If I actually went to the venues where there is still a lively atmosphere now, and they turned around, like at 44, what would they say to me? I would definitely go and fucking kill myself. Like, it's hard being I think particularly like this is quite a male problem, I think, in your 40s, but I'm sure a lot of women get it too. Like it's hard to maintain even old friendships in your 40s. And it's definitely hard to develop new ones, I think. Like, sometimes I really do miss the old, sturdy, strong, grufty friendships that I used to have back in the day, you know, like with you, like your best mates, you go to their house before the pub, you have pre-drinks with them, you talk about what you each got up to in the week, have a laugh, talk about who you're dating, who your mate slept with last weekend or something, you know, just that close-knit bond of formative years friendships. I do miss that. And it plays on my mind sometimes. Like, sometimes I think, you know, are they all still hanging out now? You know, do they all go to each other's barbecues? Do they go to each other's engagement parties more than I see them? And the answer to that is probably yes. But, you know, everyone's got kids and we don't have that childcare help there to kind of ease the burden. And then there's this whole sort of guilt layer where it's like, well, I could go. Like, we've been invited to a wedding, right? And one of us, or like both of us, will probably end up going. But again, it comes down to this, like, is it okay if I go to that and see my friends? Or are you going to feel weird because we're not going as a couple? And it's like, we should go as a couple. We should be going to stuff like this and getting a hotel room and walking in as a couple, and we sit down together, and then it's me and her, and we're a couple, and we catch up with our friends. But it can't be like that. And then that sort of puts pressure on me to then go like, well, okay, maybe both of us won't go then. Because I don't want to like leave her at home saddled with the kids while I'm off living my best life, right? So the reverse of the Brick Lane thing. But it's hard to make friends, and it's hard to maintain old friendships, and everyone's got kids, and it's hard to get out, and then you got the cost of living crisis on top of everything else, and it's just, you know, it's hard. And then you see these friendships, or you feel them just gradually fall away, and you feel yourself getting lonelier and lonelier and more detached. And I guess what I'm saying, guys, is now you know why I started a podcast. Gonna get me some internet friends. If I can't see my mates, get myself some internet friends, so I will. I mean, I'm, you know, being a little bit self-deprecating there, but, you know, there is some truth to that. Like, I did start the podcast in the pandemic because, you know, my missus was super pregs, and my other one was like quite small then. Plus, then you had all the lockdowns. I was like, well, to tick that socializing box, it would be nice to just one night a week, just come out here and have a conversation with someone, a planned, diarized conversation, and have a couple of beers with somebody. Anybody. Are you an academic? Are you a musician? Are you a technologist? Anyone, please sit and talk and drink with me. God, this has all got a bit weird, hasn't it? Right, I need to wrap this up, actually, unsurprisingly, because I need to go back into the house and check on my kids. Guys, so big thanks once again to all of the Patreons. Their names across the screen right now. What's up? What's up to all of you? Thank you so much for your continued support of the show. I'll be back on Friday night with a probably more prepped episode of A. Thompson and Other Disappointments. I'll be back tomorrow morning with the alternative paper review, which of course I do every morning, Monday to Friday. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep it booch, keep it influencer, and I am out this motherfucker.